Hey, 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 it's Saturday, and that means that for the Comics Kid 2099, it is time to watch an episode of an animated superhero television show and review it. Today, we are taking a look at an episode of Batman the Animated Series titled The Underdwellers. So I think I should just get right into it. No sugarcoating or beating around the bush. This is, so far, the worst episode of Batman the Animated Series that I have seen yet. Heck, this is probably worse than most episodes of Young Justice that I watched and reviewed, and if you've been watching my videos for any length of time, you know how much I hated that show. So, what's so bad about this particular episode? I think it's the perfect storm of not a great concept in the first place, and some pretty poor execution of said concept. The concept is that some guy called the Sewer King has a child slave ring living in the sewers of Gotham City, and he sends them up to the city to steal jewels and purses and other stuff. And for some reason, he also has them doing work with yard tools in the sewer, which, what is the purpose of having them do that? Anyway, this sounds like a pretty silly concept right from the start, and that is quite a feat when among Batman's villains you can count a man who throws cold at you and a human crocodile. Yes, the Sewer King is sillier than those things. The Sewer King doesn't let these children speak, or even make any noises at all. Not really sure why, but this guy is pretty messed up in the head, so it's best not to overthink it, I guess. Not only does he not let them make any noises at all, but he also underfeeds them, and there's one particular instance of what appears to be him beating a kid. It's actually him hitting the basket of rolls out of the boy's hand, but it certainly is meant to evoke a hard slap in the face, at least in my opinion. Okay, so basically the Sewer King treats these kids like, well, sewage. And yet he sends them up into the city every night. Now, I get that these kids are all runaways, or at least that's what the Sewer King says, that their loved ones sent them away and hurt them. But surely after experiencing just a night of the conditions the Sewer King puts these kids through, at least one of them would have had the idea to not come back. If you are sent upstairs and the Sewer King stays downstairs, then don't go back to him. He won't find you, even if he comes out of the sewers. Now, I get that if you're scared, you sometimes do stupid things, but there's a fast reflex action that, in retrospect, you realize that you shouldn't have done. And then there's these idiot kids who think it's a good idea to keep coming back to the Sewer King. Even in a city like Gotham City, where in other media the cops are just as bad as the criminals, a kid would have it better off going to the police rather than going to the Sewer King. And basically, the reason that these kids don't do something that actually makes a whole lot of sense is so that Batman can get involved in the story. If characters have to make extraordinarily awful decisions so that the hero of the story can have something to do in the story, maybe that's a hint that this isn't a story you should be doing in the first place. Anyway, after one of the Sewer King's kids steals a lady's purse, Batman eventually finds his way into the sewer and kidnaps the kid, who mysteriously wasn't up stealing stuff when Batman finally found him. Then Batman tells Alfred to take care of the kid while he does... Actually, I don't think Batman does anything worthwhile during this whole segment of the episode. We see him sitting at the Bat computer laughing at Alfred trying to take care of the kid, which admittedly is a little funny, especially that Batman thinks it's funny. But why isn't Batman immediately trying to get this kid to tell him what's going on? What makes this chunk of the episode even more bewildering is that Alfred tells Batman that he doesn't know anything about kids. As of this episode, we haven't actually found out the specifics of the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne. All we know is that Bruce's parents are dead. Now, I know I shouldn't be taking what we know from another medium, in this case the movies or the comics, and apply it to this show. But I think it's safe to say, even if we're not explicitly told so, that Bruce's parents died when he was a kid. So, didn't Alfred help raise Bruce? I guess I shouldn't just assume that Alfred has been working for the Waynes since Bruce was a child, like he was in basically every version of Batman ever since Batman Year One, but I think that's a safe assumption to make, right? So it is a little strange that Alfred says he doesn't know anything about kids. Especially when Bruce actually asks himself, I wonder if I was that much trouble. So, yeah, not much else to say about that. Just kind of bad storytelling. Anyway, after the kid finds Bruce Wayne's antique musket collection, he almost, wait a minute, why does Bruce Wayne have a collection of guns? I know that this show isn't going to go into the specifics of how the Waynes died because it's a kids show and we wouldn't want to frighten the kids. It's not like an emaciated child slave ring living underground would frighten kids, right? And it's not like this scene really serves a purpose in the episode. I mean, I guess it's there to illustrate the importance of gun safety, but this episode isn't even about guns at all. This whole segment, like pretty much everything since this kid was brought to Bruce's house, is really useless and doesn't need to be here. Anyway, Bruce finally decides to ask this kid to help him find the Sewer King, which, up until now, I don't even think Bruce has any reason to suspect that there's a mastermind behind this kid, or that there are more kids like him. All that Bruce knows is that a kid stole a lady's purse and then went into the sewers. Why does he think that there's more going on here? Just because we saw the Sewer King and these other kids doesn't mean that Batman should think that there's anything else going on here unless we see some kind of evidence of that, which, aside from some mysterious scrawling on the wall, there's really not. But the kid brings Batman to the sewers where the other kids are hiding, and we get a very touching scene where, oh no, that must be in an episode that's actually kinda good. Instead, we get what I am convinced is not supposed to be a comical line delivery, but it definitely is. Batman grimaces and says in his best growl, "Evidence!" And then he starts taking pictures of the kids. Hey, does anybody remember that College Humor video where Batman is trying to do his disappearing act while he and Gordon are on the roof? The line, "I found some evidence." You remember that, right? Yeah, I can't watch this scene without thinking of that skit. But even if that skit wasn't a thing, this is still a pretty awful scene in the episode, much like the entire episode, really. From this point on, the episode progresses basically as you would expect. Batman and the Sewer King face off, the Sewer King sends his pet crocodiles after Batman. Batman does this insane thing where he flips one of the crocs over his head and slams it into the ground. Now, I had to look this up, but apparently a saltwater croc averages about 1 ton and could get even up to 3 tons. Also, I bet you didn't know that a large crocodile can crush a full-grown bovid's skull between its jaws. Okay, so maybe these things aren't crocs. I'm no Ace Ventura. I can't tell a croc apart from a gator. So maybe it's an alligator. According to my Google homework, a full-grown alligator would get up to 600 pounds. So it's more likely that this thing is an alligator, right? That still means that Batman grabbed an alligator's snout from behind him and swung it clear over his shoulders into the ground. I am all for Batman being the most physically fit guy on the planet, but this borders on superpowers, methinks. This is something maybe Spider-Man could do, but not Batman. At least not without breaking his back or pulling his arms out of his shoulder sockets. Anyway, Batman chases the Sewer King, who falls to his seeming death in some water where some mean-looking gators are waiting for him. Then we get a line from Batman that, if I'm not mistaken, is a reference to something he said in Detective Comics issue 27, which was the first appearance of Batman. In Detective Comics issue 27, Batman punches a bad guy into a vat of acid and simply says, "A fitting end for his kind." Now here, Batman at least tries to save the Sewer King, who refuses Batman's help. And when Batman thinks the Sewer King is dead, he says, "A gruesome end for a gruesome man." A little different, but I think it's a reference, which I guess is kinda cool. But the Sewer King doesn't die. His pet gators save him, and then Batman chases him down, and then the Sewer King is arrested, and the kids are taken to the surface world, where things will presumably be much better for them. And one kid, seeing the sun, starts happily proclaiming that the light is here. Okay, now you can talk, you useless twerp? Not only is the plot and the execution of said plot pretty awful in this episode, but I just don't really care about anything that happens here. At least with characters like Man-Bat and the Joker, I can get into their heads a little bit and see why they're doing what they're doing. Heck, I didn't even have a whole lot of positive things to say about the way Poison Ivy was used in the previous episode of this series, but at least I know what she's about when I watch the episode Pretty Poison. But this Sewer King guy, he's just there. Now, part of it could be that, since he doesn't have a comic book counterpart, that I don't have anything other than this episode to go by. With the Joker or Poison Ivy, I could just go to the comics and look at their personalities there and then extrapolate, except that I don't think I'm really doing that. Both of those characters are presented very differently in multiple appearances in the comics, so I don't really have a singular version of either of them to compare and contrast to in the episodes. No, I think the Sewer King is just a really not great villain. I do appreciate what the people behind this episode are trying to do, I guess. They don't want to only use characters from the comics. They want to try and add their own flavor to the stew that is Batman. And sometimes that works out great for everyone, like with Harley Quinn from this very series. But the Sewer King, he's just not one to write home about, I'm afraid. And overall, the same could be said for this entire episode as well. So that's all I have for this episode. If you have any comments about this episode or my review of it, you can tell me what you think in the comments section, or you can make a video response if you feel like it. And if you like this review, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and do all the other things that you love doing for YouTube videos. I'll be back tomorrow with some other kind of video. I'll see you then.